So today on the Whatcast, we're going to be talking about gumdrop fairies.
Oh, shit.
And black licorice demons. So, you know, I hope you brought your sweet tooth. What the hell am I doing? I don't even know. This is not about gumdrop fairies. This is not about whatever else I just said. We're going to do another episode on mysterious deaths. They're deaths that are so mysterious that they didn't even show up on the show until now, except for one which showed up on the show before, but I'm coming at it from a different angle this time. But everything else is so mysterious that it remained mysterious long enough for us not to cover it until 5 years into our show.
That's quite mysterious.
It's very mysterious, Mateo. It's so mysterious that it's a mystery. You might even call it a mysterious mystery. God damn, this show's already off the rails. Cue the music, damn it.
So these mysterious deaths aren't of just regular people, right? These are like paranormal investigators, whistleblowers type thing we're talking about?
No, they're just mysterious.
Oh,
they're
okay.
Mysterious mysteries. Well, one guy was an investigator though, and that's the one case that we did mention. We talked about it on the alien witness people that die episode. Gaurav Tiwari, and I don't remember what his connection with UFOs was, but he was a paranormal investigator, and I got into his full story, but I'll just go over it really quick here. But he started his career as an actor at age 16, but then he ended up going to a pilot's academy in Texas and became a commercial pilot. And it was while he was a pilot that he bought a house in Florida. He believed at the time that his house was haunted. And as a result of this haunting, he felt that there was more out there than what conventional science would say. And so he became a paranormal investigator. And he returned to India in 2009. And he established the Indian Paranormal Society. And it was a group set up to help and investigate issues surrounding the paranormal. So like if people were being haunted or had like weird things going on, they would investigate and try to help the individuals. So he had done a bunch of TV stuff. He did... he had a show called Haunting Australia. He had a special on MTV called Girls Night Out, and he was one of the mentors on a show called MTV Heat Ticket. I have no fucking clue what that is, but it just sounds like one of those spring break dating show things. I honestly have no idea, but he was there. But his death was kind of mysterious. He was at home with his father and his wife, and he went to go take a shower. And a lot of time went by, and he never came out. And they heard a crash in the bathroom, and they tried to get in, but the door was locked. So his father had to kick the door down. And when they got to him, he was found dead, and it was ruled asphyxiation. But he had this thin black mark across his neck. It was a thin black line, and he was just found laying on the bathroom floor. Now, what's interesting about that thin black line is I believe the angle that we talked about in the first show was that he was killed off by someone somehow, and the thin black line, I think we speculated was from like a piano wire or something, and he was being choked. But throughout his investigations, he actually brought up these thin black lines and said they would often appear on people's chest or their wrists or across their neck. and it was a symbol that they were being attacked by some evil entity. So people that are more conspiracy minded or more paranormal minded, I guess, believe that at an investigation something may have attached itself to him and followed him home. And he apparently had been saying for months to his wife and to some close friends that something was going on, and he felt like there was something calling to him. And he never really got too deep into it, and his wife said that she just attributed it to him working too hard and just being tired and stressed out, and it made him feel paranoid or something, that he felt like something was watching him and calling to him. But this is how he ended up dead on the floor. There was no explanation for why he died other than asphyxiation. And at first, the Indian police were thinking that it could be a homicide, and they were questioning his wife and his father, and so they thought some things didn't add up with the whole situation, and but they weren't able to prove anything. So at this point, he was either suicided or killed by evil ghosties. Those are the only options. There are no other options. That's it.
Why is
I'll
it?
hear nothing else. Don't argue with me, Mateo. 2 options. That's it.
Why is it when it comes to these stories where we hear about somebody who's an investigator that gets some type of attachment like that, they just always try to deal with it themselves? Shouldn't they know through their work that that's something they need to take seriously and handle right away?
Well, that's the thing. Maybe it was a case where he wasn't sure, or maybe he just didn't know how to remove it from himself. You know, I would imagine he probably thought he knew what he was doing. Maybe it was above his pay grade, so to speak, or maybe it was just something he couldn't do. You know, maybe it was like a thing where he's like the tired old veteran and he's seen it all, and he's like, no, I'm not going to be brought down by a ghost. And then he was brought down by a ghost. His own hubris did him in.
We'll see if something's taking over his mind and his body, or calling out to him in his mind. That's obviously just not just a ghost. I think he'd be able to reach out to somebody who would be able to help him.
Is that what you think?
Yep.
Is that your final answer, Mateo?
It is. He was being lazy with it, or too hubris, like you said.
Yeah, that's what I think the deal is. I think it was just hubris on his part. And if he really thought something was attached to him and he didn't do anything about it, either he thought that he was untouchable, or maybe he was just tired of it and was just like, fuck it, take me.
And they rule it asphyxiation. How that's strange, because that's pretty significant if he was killed by some type of demonic or paranormal entity.
Yeah, and they don't have an explanation for the thin black line.
I wonder if they attribute that line to being the cause of what choked him. Was it like a cut, or?
Well, that's the other thing. In the bathroom, they weren't able to find anything that would have choked him. There was no ropes or strings or wire. There was nothing like that. So either someone was in there with him and choked him and like jumped out the bathroom window without letting anyone know, or he was attacked by a demon.
It's crazy. There's 2 other people in the house, so
yeah, and that was the weird thing. They thought he had been in the bathroom for a long time, and then they heard the crashing sound in the bathroom, and then they couldn't get in.
See, I don't think somebody who's there to kill somebody would be sloppy enough, knowing there's 2 other people in the house. I mean, if he knew he was there, he had to have been aware of the 2 other people.
Clearly he wasn't sloppy. He left nothing behind. There was no evidence. So, no broken window, no weapons, no other fingerprints, nothing to indicate that anyone was in there with him. So I wouldn't call it sloppy. I would say that he is very adept at his job.
Yeah. So dropping a body that he just garroted to death doesn't seem like part of his MO.
The man is a ninja.
Mm-hmm.
He's a ninja. When the unexpected happens, he disappears on the breeze. Whoosh! Out the window.
Do you know if they investigated it as maybe a murder, and if they did?
It was. The homicide wasn't ruled out, but they weren't able to find any motive. I guess him and his wife had been arguing, but, couples argue that that's not necessarily a motive for murder, and especially when his father is in the house. That'd be like some Lifetime movie shit right there. The wife and the father murder the husband and run away together.
Ah.
Only to get caught by the sheriff in the end in some cabin in the woods, and the father probably gets gunned down, and the widowed wife cries because now she's lost her husband and her lover, and then she gets taken into custody and gets life in prison, and then, roll the credits.
Gets possessed by the spirit that actually killed her.
Yeah, then gets possessed by the demon, and she's like, it was me all along. Fucker.
Then it becomes a court drama because they can't convict a demon.
Yep, they can't. So it gets thrown out, and then she gets sent to a mental institution where she sits there in diapers with her head spinning for the rest of her days. And that is the sad life of the widow of Mr. Tuari.
And they pretty much dropped the case.
Yeah, no. There was no foul play. There's no proof of foul play. Like I said, the only thing to indicate that anything happened was that black line found across his neck. There was nothing else. He was just dead on the floor. But, people don't just asphyxiate out of nowhere, That doesn't happen.
Where are they getting this asphyxiation from if there's no obvious cause?
And that's what makes it so mysterious. It's a mysterious mystery.
You got sound effects now, buddy. But bust them on. Hello.
Mysterious mystery.
There you go.
Yeah. That made it extra mysterious. That's how you know, because there's echo effects. So I guess that's a good one to start with since we've covered it before, just to show you how mysterious these mysteries really are. And that's, to me, this one is like the least mysterious, even though there's no explanation, and there's the weird black line and the very, very likely demonic possession angle and wife father runaway scenario that also was probably going on, but I embellished it. No, none of that is true. I don't mean to defame the family of the deceased. They're probably perfectly fine people that are not banging. It was just a Lifetime movie scenario that's been seen a million times on Lifetime movies. Anyone who's got a sappy wife or girlfriend has probably seen those types of things millions of times now. You know what I'm talking about. But like I said, that's not the most mysterious mystery of all. So there's this guy. There was this guy, I should say. His name was Zygmunt Adamski. And he was a Polish immigrant to England. He moved to Yorkshire, England. And he was married. He was married to a woman who was considerably younger than him, but she suffered from multiple sclerosis. And they established themselves as a married couple in Yorkshire, and everything was going normal, and up until June 6th, 1980. So Zygmunt his daughter was getting married the next day, and he was very much looking forward to seeing her get married. But the day before her wedding, he went off around 3:30 in the afternoon. He was going to the local shops in the city and picking up groceries. And the last person to see him as he was walking was one of his neighbors, who said hello to him. They had a brief exchange, and Zygmunt went on his way. And he was the type of guy who was very reliable. He wasn't one who would just disappear without word, especially considering that his goddaughter's wedding was the following day. But he never returned home from the shopping trip. 5 days after he vanished, his body was found in a town called Todmorden, which is 20 miles away from his house. And his body was found on top of a coal pile in Tomlin's coal yard. The coal pile itself had not been disturbed. There was nothing to indicate someone had climbed up it or gone back down it, but his body was found at 3:45 in the afternoon of June 11th. The person that found him was a guy named Trevor Parker, and he had just left the site at 11 a.m. that morning, and he was returning at 3:45 for the 4 o'clock shift, and that's when he found the body. So sometime between 11 and 3:45, his body was deposited. They ruled, well, they did a preliminary examination and ruled it a heart attack. That's how he had died. But there was a lot of weirdness to this. As I said, the coal pile itself had not been disturbed at all. The body was directly on top of the coal pile. Its body was face down. The coal pile itself was 12 feet high. So, I mean, if you're climbing, think about when you were a kid and you're climbing like a rubble pile or a pile of rocks or whatever. You climb up, you disturb that shit, and it rolls down. Coal's no different, and this is a 12-foot pile of coal. So you're not going to climb up 12 piles carrying a dead body without disturbing the coal and then go back down. It's just not going to happen. But beyond that, his body, it was dressed, but things seemed out of place. So for starters, he wasn't wearing a shirt. His jacket was put on, but it was buttoned all weird, like someone buttoned it that had never buttoned something before.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was just all buttoned crooked. His pants and his shoes were both fastened in a way that also seemed like the person that did it had no idea what was going on. And even though he was gone for 5 days, there was only a single day's worth of facial hair on his face. He was also found to have eaten very well the entire time that he was gone. They checked the contents of his stomach, and he hadn't been wasting away. There was food in his stomach. But he also had these burn marks that were around his neck and shoulders, and all of the burns were covered with this gel that was never able to be identified.
What the fuck?
Yeah. So somehow the doctor, in doing the autopsy, was able to determine that his death occurred between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. on the day that he was found. So he died shortly after the last guy, Mr. Parker, left the coal yard at 11. He died sometime after that. And he was also able, the coroner was also able to determine that the burns on his body were 2 days old. And after the autopsy was done, the coroner also ruled that he had died of a heart attack. But they weren't able to determine what happened and how his body got there. Now, a curious note to this story: the area that he was found is an area that is known to have UFO sightings. In addition to that, there were cows that would disappear and reappear on ranches in the area. And a few months after the investigation took place, the same Officer Godfrey, that had been the first responder to the body, was also on, now this is a few months again, he was investigating a group of cows that had been reported missing. So he was on his way to investigate, and along the road he saw in the distance what he initially thought was a bus that had turned over on its side. And as he drove closer, he saw that it was this object that was vaguely diamond in shape that was floating 5 feet off the ground. When he saw it, he tried to report it to the station, but he couldn't get a signal through on his radio. So he didn't want to get out of the car, but he said that he eventually felt basically he had a period of missing time, and he came to about a half hour later, and he was in his car, but he was further down the road. And when he later examined his boots, he saw that the soles had been worn and split, and it looked like he had been dragged along the road. Like his feet were just stationary and he was dragged along the road. So he turned around, went back down the road, and there was no sign of the objects that he saw on the road. But later, the cows that were missing were discovered in a different field behind a locked gate. And behind the gate itself, or the area in the field and around the gate was all muddy. And there were no footprints or hoof prints around anywhere near the gate that would have indicated that the cows walked through the gate. They just kind of appeared there.
Wow.
Yeah.
What year was this again?
1980.
1980, huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so I mean it's not very, I mean, maybe to some of you whippersnappers out there that's a long time ago, but I mean shit, that was a year before I was born.
Yeah.
You know, so it's not very old to me, you guys. I may be an old geezer, but they still feel like yesterday to me. But yeah, so I mean there is another side of this. So I don't want to immediately run to death by aliens, even though we all know that was exactly what happened. But his family was interviewed, and members of his family have a feeling that he may have been abducted by a member of the family. So before he had died, Zygmunt and his wife had welcomed in the wife of one of his relatives to live with them, because this particular relative had been abusive towards his wife. So they took her in, and apparently this guy was really pissed off about that. And so they feel that he may have abducted Zygmunt and maybe tortured him and held him somewhere. But to me, that seems weird for a number of reasons. If you're going to abduct somebody and keep them tied up somewhere, maybe torture them with burns and everything, why would you bother feeding them? And not only feeding them, but shaving their face. I mean, if you remember, he was gone 5 days, but he only had a day's worth of growth on his face.
Yeah, that raises a lot of questions, and it makes a lot of things possible. That's weird.
Not to mention that there was no disturbance around the coal. Whoever killed him would have to bring his body into the coal yard in the middle of the day. Like right in the middle of the day is he would have had to deposit his body there. You know, broad daylight, anybody could have came in and saw him. And what are they going to, you know, that doesn't seem like a good place to hide a body. Call me crazy.
Yeah, that's just unexplainable to me. I mean, I think if you'd put a body on a pile of coal like that, it would be hard to get it not to start crumbling.
Yeah, exactly.
Seems impossible, but not if he was teleported there.
No, or dropped out of an UFO.
But that has to be a pretty good toss. If he's being dropped out of a UFO.
Yeah, and plus, again, if he had been tossed from a UFO, he would have disturbed the pile of coal, and the pile of coal was not disturbed. So I don't know, man. This is a weird one. I would like to say that it was a murder, but it seems weird. Because, again, if you're going to kill somebody, you're not going to put their body out in the middle, right out in the open, and take the risk of getting caught in the middle of a summer day. You know, you're going to try to hide the body or bury it, throw it down by the river or something. You're not going to take it onto a coal mine and dump it on a pile of coal.
How do you even notice a body on a 12-foot pile of coal in the first place? That's kind of weird.
Well, it was like, I guess it was right in the middle of the coal mine area thing, and the guy, when he came to work, just saw the body.
They're all fucking
He was
aliens.
probably in a big, awesome truck. He rolls in, and he's like, oh, that looks like a dead body. And then it was a dead body. I don't know. I mean, this one to me, if I were a believer in aliens, I would say this was an alien abduction gone awry. Because, you know, usually when they abduct people, they bring them back and wipe their memories. And with him, maybe he just got so freaked out by what was going on that he died. And the aliens freaked out, like, oh shit, what are we going to do? And then they just teleported him to this coal pile because they felt bad. So they didn't want him to, you know, just rot somewhere. They're just like, all right, we got to put him somewhere where people will find him. But they didn't want to freak out the public, so they didn't just dump him in the middle of the street somewhere. It's like, all right, one person's going to be rolling up here. We'll just teleport them here, and we'll just fly away. They'll be none the wiser. And to this day, we are none the wiser.
Yeah,
I don't have an answer, do you?
No, but I agree with you. It definitely seems like an abduction gone wrong. He somehow suffered a heart attack halfway through the abduction, and he was dropped off in a hurry. Because, I mean, there's a lot of stuff there. How else are you going to explain this stuff? Right, I mean, right out of the gate, like we just talked about, being placed on the pile of coals, the full stomach, one day's hair growth on his face. There's a lot of stuff that really doesn't make sense. I've actually heard Lee and Andy cover this on the Realms of the Supernatural podcast.
Oh, really? Nice.
Yeah. And to me, this is...
Check them out, guys, if you haven't already.
Yeah.
They're wonderful gentlemen, and I would give them all kisses if I could.
But to me, this is just one of the all-time greatest weird death cases.
Oh, you say that, but wait till you hear what I've got up next.
Ooh, all right. Now I'm excited.
This shit is like horror movie stuff.
Oh.
I'm surprised a horror movie hasn't been made about this, to be honest with you. But this is the strange death of a man named Christopher Case. Have you ever heard of this one?
No.
Oh boy, are you in for a treat? All right, so this goes all the way back to 1991. If you can picture this, it was a time of goatees and flannel, and Doc Martens.
Nirvana was the biggest thing, and
yeah, Nirvana and the whole Seattle thing was doing things.
Friends was the biggest thing on television.
No, this was way before Friends.
Really, was it? I don't know.
Yeah.
I did.
This was before Stone Cold Steve Austin. This is going way back, guys. This is before Hulk Hogan even left WWF to go to WCW. That's how far back we're going.
Wow.
Yeah, Hulkamania was presently running wild at this point in time. But anyway, this guy, Christopher Case, he was a music executive. He grew up in North Carolina, lived in North Carolina for a long time, and ended up moving to Seattle in the 90s. How weird. But he didn't go out there to work with like cool bands or anything. He went out there to work with the Muzak Corporation. Now, today, when you go into the grocery store, typically you'll just have some shitty, easy listening music. But back in the 80s and early 90s, when you'd go into a grocery store, you'd have this instrumental music that would be instrumental versions of adult, contemporary, and easy listening. So just picture shittier versions of these already shitty songs that you hear in the grocery store. That was Muzak. And he was a executive for them, which, whatever, good for him. I'm sure he didn't go home and listen to Muzak. But I mean, maybe he did, and if he did, he's very likely a strange man. But he apparently had interest in the music of ancient cultures, and he was on a business trip in, I think it was San Francisco, and he met this woman who was twice his age. Now at the time he's 35. So I don't know if twice his age is an exaggeration, but she was older than him, we'll say. She is at least old enough to be his mom. And they got to talking and everything, and they kind of hit it off. Now, this stuff, I'm only mentioning it now because it happened chronologically first, but this stuff wasn't even found out until the investigation surrounding his death. But apparently what had happened was this woman kind of developed a thing for him, and he just wasn't interested. And so he turned her down, and she told him that she was going to curse him and make sure that he died. So, of course, as most people would think when told that they're getting a curse put on them and they're going to die, he just thought that she was a fucking crazy woman and that he dodged a bullet there and went home. So a few weeks go by, things go normal, and then things started going strange for him. And he called two of his friends in North Carolina and started telling them that people were after him and that people were trying to do something. And he said that he was in fear of his life, and he started telling one of his friends named Sammy Sauter, and he told her that he had met a woman who was a witch, and she put the curse on him and that she was going to kill him. And then he left another message for one of their mutual friends saying basically the same thing. And then he would call back and say, people are trying to do things to me. And it culminated with him one night he had to leave his house and he went to a hotel room. And then that day he talked to his friend and basically told her that they almost got him last night. And if he didn't leave, they would have killed him. But then he told her that he felt like tonight was the night that they were going to get him, and there was nothing he could do about it. But he wouldn't go into who they were. Now, he was found after his friends couldn't reach him for 3 days. And his friend, Sammy Sauter, ended up calling the police in Seattle, and they went to investigate. And when they first went to his house, the door was locked. They knocked on the door and no one answered. And they checked back a few times and it was locked. No one answered. Finally, they returned the last time. And when they got there, the door was unlocked.
Huh.
So they went inside. They found him kneeling in his bathtub with his head leaning against the wall. And when they looked around the apartment, he had salt around the borders of every single room, across the threshold of every door, and he had books about protection from evil spirits in his house. So they investigate. They didn't rule out a suicide at first, but they said there wasn't any evidence that there wasn't any evidence of foul play, that anyone had broken in or that anyone had murdered him. There was no murder weapon. The autopsy came back that it was heart failure, and they thought he had this really rare heart condition that a lot of times goes untreated, and it kills. It has killed athletes before because when it comes on, it kind of comes on as with flu-like symptoms, and then occasionally you'll get shortness of breath or chest pains. And if not treated from there, it can just kill you suddenly one day without you even really knowing it. So that's what they ruled it. But the position that he was in, kneeling in his tub with his head against the wall, fully clothed. There was no water in the tub. He was clothed in his tub, kneeling down, leaning against the wall. So to me, that doesn't indicate a sudden death. You know, like who just hangs out in their bathtub in kneeling position?
That's true.
And the salt all over the place. We've talked about it before, but salt is a well-known repellent or well-known component to protecting yourself from evil spirits or protecting evil from walking across your threshold. If you sprinkle salt across your threshold, it can't cross it. If you put it around, if for people that do summoning rituals, that they will often surround themselves with a circle of salt so that whatever they summon can't get to them. And the idea is that evil spirits don't like anything that can preserve, because they're all about destruction and decay and things like that. And if salt is a known preservative, so because salt preserves, that it's able to repel their evil. That's the superstition anyway. But a lot of, if you read a lot of books about battling evil spirits and things like that, that you'll often see things with having to do with salt to protect yourself. But they weren't able to ever determine what happened. And his friend feels that rather than it being a spirit, she thinks what happened was this woman's curse got into his head. And then he started reading all these books about protection, which made him think about it further. And she feels that he just worked himself up and that he may have died from fright. Like he may have actually been so afraid that he curled up in his bathtub, not knowing what else to do, and had a heart attack and died. But just think about that. The guy was so terrified by whatever was going on that he continually called his friends on the other side of the country, just telling him that people are trying to do things to him and that he's not sure if he's going to be able to make it through the night, and then talking about being tormented by something so bad that he has to leave in the middle of the night to go sleep at a hotel room.
No, what was going on that made him leave his house? Was there just an impending attack, or was there activity going on?
Yeah, he said that whatever it was that was coming in and tormenting him was just keeping him all night. And he didn't really get into details with his friend, or at least his friend didn't relate any of the details, but she said that he told her that they almost got him the night before, and that if he hadn't left, he would be dead.
That's weird, though. If it's supposed to be a curse, who's coming to do what?
Well, it could be either the woman who cursed him was able to summon some spirits to torment him, or maybe she was visiting him in astral form and doing things.
Mm.
You know, if you believe in that stuff, there's a lot of different explanations that it could be. And there's plenty of books out there that'll teach you how to summon spirits, or how to commune with spirits. And if we've talked about it a lot, and it's been mentioned many times, but when you invite things like that in, you're opening this door. And, you know, whether she actually knew what she was doing, or she just had the intent, or what the deal was, maybe she was able to get something to come through and do her work for her. And she must have really taken this personal that the guy turned her down. But like I said, she could have done the astral form, which if you remember back in the witch trials, that was one of the things that the witches were accused of, was visiting people in their spirit forms. And so if this is something that evil witches are able to do, maybe she was able to do that, and she, through her astral form, was able to drain energy from him.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's why he had all these feelings like he was being attacked and watched, and maybe that's ultimately what killed him. Maybe she just took all of his energy and his heart stopped. You know, there's nothing there's no test you can run that say, oh, his life force was just sucked dry by a witch. That there's you don't find that in an autopsy. You can see that his heart stopped. What was the reason for the heart stopping? They're not sure, but his heart stopped, and that's why he died.
That's crazy to think about him scaring himself to death. I mean, like,
Mm-hmm.
You've probably gone to maybe not a haunted place, but maybe a place where there's legends about it, or maybe an abandoned place that's spooky, to where you see how fast fear can sweep over even a group of people, and people are just quick to just turn around and run. And it's
or feel like they've experienced something like you know, maybe it gets a little cold and like, ooh, that's a ghost.
Yeah. So
or they'll feel like, you know, sometimes you just walking through your house, you'll walk through like a cobweb and you'll just feel it brush your hair, and you go to reach up there and there's nothing there because it was just a little cobweb string, but you felt it. And if you're in a place that you think is haunted and you feel that, you're going to be like, oh my God, I just got grabbed by a ghost.
Yeah, but people get to that so quickly when they're in a situation like that. And it just seems pretty extreme. I wonder if he had any other mental issues, like suffering from paranoia or anything like that. To me,
by all accounts, he was a perfectly normal guy, and he never displayed any of this behavior before. He didn't even display an interest in the occult or anything like that. He was a music nerd. And it wasn't until he was cursed that he started looking into these books. And I read one article about it where apparently before he died, because around, I forgot to mention, around his apartment, in addition to all the salt, there was also crucifixes all over the place. And in some of the rooms, there was religious music playing. So I don't know if it was hymns or just songs about God or what it was, but it was religious music playing, and he had crucifixes all over the place. But apparently the shop owner who he bought the crucifixes from, kind of helped him out with a book on spiritual protection. And that was one of the books found at the scene.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. Like, just that's the perfect story for a fucking horror movie. I can't believe that no one has picked up on this and done a movie about it. You know, especially with the whole based on a true story craze. Maybe it's just because the Warrens weren't involved in this one.
Yep. Once again.
Yeah. Damn yous, Warrens. Damn you straight to hell.
It's not a credible story.
Yeah, the Warrens aren't involved, therefore it's too incredible to believe. Now, if the Warrens were involved, then we got something to go on. This isn't this can't be an Annabelle spinoff. But maybe it could. Maybe he could just put the doll in his apartment, make the doll possessed by the witch, and the doll kills him and then jumps out the window. No one finds it. But I don't know. It's really weird that it's like a scene from a movie, you know, like just picture it. The opening scene is the cops opening the door and walking in, and you just hear the religious music playing, and it's dimly lit. They hear the religious music playing in the background. They see crucifixes on tables and shelves and on the wall. And as they walk across the threshold, they notice a gritty feeling under their feet. And they look down and see a pile of salt. And the camera pans and shows salt going all the way around the room. And then the detectives walk in and hear the music get louder as they're going into the bedroom. There's no one there, but they notice again the salt. They go into the next room. And again, the salt, the crucifixes. Maybe one of the detectives picks up a few books that were on the shelf. And he's like, oh, spiritual protection. What the fuck? What in God's name? And then they go in the bathroom and they see the guy fully clothed, kneeling in his bathtub. But it just shows him from behind. So you're like, oh my God. I'm like, sir, are you okay? This is the Seattle police. Sir, are you okay? No movement. And then the camera pans and it shows it from, you see the dead body's face with the cop standing behind him. And it's just a blank look on his face. No, to make it even better, it's a look of complete and utter horror on his face. And then the movie starts from there. Tell me that wouldn't be a good opening to a horror. Yeah, seriously.
It'd make it all gritty like a David Fincher film.
Can somebody please fund me so that I can make some fucking movies here? How much Hollywood gold have I spurned out on this show? Somebody give me some fucking backing so that I can start putting out some good movies, damn it. Or absolutely ridiculous movies, depending on my flight of fancy at the time. It'll either be a good horror movie or a really cheesy B movie. But I promise if it's a cheesy B movie that it will star Spooky Team 6 for all you fans out there. One of these days we'll nail down a roster and get it going.
Yeah, these cases seem to have truly mysterious goings on. I mean, the first...
Would you call them mysterious mysteries?
I like both these cases because they are really unexplainable.
Yeah. And I like that there's kind of ties to paranormal happenings. Like, it's not just a mysterious death. It's, the Adamski death. His body was found in an area that's a UFO hotspot. Mm-hmm. And then with Christopher Case, he was telling people that he was being cursed and that things were visiting him and trying to attack him. And then he dies. And he told his friend that he felt like he was going to die that day. And then he died that day.
When me and Mike took a break, I was talking about that case and I got to see some of his friends interviewed and he was freaking the fuck out.
Yeah. Well, I would be too, man. If I was getting fucking demons haunting me in the middle of the night trying to murder my head, I would not be cool with that. I would say, fuck you, demon. Fuck you.
You go to your local head shop and buy some books on protection.
I got plenty of books on protection as it is. I won't be going to some hippie shop and rubbing my ass on any crystals. I got the goods right here.
Thank you for listening to the Whatcast. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, iTunes, and YouTube. Enjoy the podcast. Get yourself a Whatcast t-shirt or a sticker pack. Who was that dude on that one episode? Try the links in Homie's page. All this and more can be found at www.thewhatcasters.com. Thanks again for listening and have a great week.